Now we have something stored especially for our developer community. Our understanding of the web is changing. Additionally, developers will be at the forefront of what comes next. What better approach to anticipate and investigate this decentralized system than to discuss it with a team of experts? Prepare to expand your horizons by participating in this fireside chat with these next inventors. We have Madhav Karhade, the co-founder and CTO of Reminiscence Technology, Inc., as well as Venkata Duvvuri, the investor and founder of Siriusmindshare LLC. Welcome them to the stage for this next fireside chat.
So welcome to Web 3.0 fireside chat. I'm going to be actually asking question to one of the expert here. I'm not one of the expert in that area. My area of expertise are totally different, even though it is an internet, but it's different. So can you tell me something about yourself first, and then we can. Hello.
Yeah, hello everybody. So it's the last session of the day, and I'm hoping to, enchant you with some knowledge. Web 3.0 is a fairly recent phenomena, but there is a dearth of information there, so I'll try to do my best. I'm the founder of Siriusmindshare. It's a AI operations company, and we deal with building AI services for small businesses, as well as hopefully for the Web 3.0 environments. So I have some expertise, but my expertise is limited to AI, but I'll try to do my best how Web 3.0 fits into this ecosystem.
So then can you tell me what is the jargon 3.0? Why it is called 3.0? What happened to 1.0, 2.0, where the things are now?
Yeah, so Web 1.0, as when I was a youngster, Web 1.0 was primarily consisting of a few websites that were stitched together manually. It was the late 90s. It came from the boom in showing your information over the web and things like that. Everything was static and not super useful. Then started Web 2.0 in the 2000s after the dot-com burst, and the idea was that Web 2.0 is mostly an application. So you have web applications. So if you look at the Netflix or the Amazons of the world, they are not just websites, they are applications in the sense that they recommend stuff to you via AI. They process big payment processing and shipping processing, etc. on the back end. As well as there was the abundance of social media channels. Together they made Web 2.0. But one of the fundamental problems of Web 2.0 is that it is centrally governed. And so there are a variety of internet companies like Netflix or Amazon. I don't want to name every one of them, but they are kind of like the big brothers of this Web 2.0.
So basically FANG.
Basically the FANG companies. And they control most of the ecosystem that's available out there, or at least influence virtually all the innovation as well as the development activities in Web 2.0. So at sometime in 2014, Mr. Wood put together a plan or an idea that what if the web was decentralized? And that became popular and known as Web 3.0. There were a few sessions which already pointed out here that Web 3.0 is mostly consisting of decentralized technologies like the blockchain and currencies which operate under those areas, distributed ledgers, and there is metaverse which was thrown in. But one thing I like to throw into this Web 3.0 is also AI for Web 3.0, which is also an important element.
So curiously, prior to that, there is a concept called semantic web, which was coined by the inventor of WWW or World Wide Web. And how different that is compared to the current incarnation of Web 3.0.
Yeah, Web 3.0, under the hood, it is decentralized, but it is with the addition of metaverse as its front end. Web 3.0 would be a virtual world. A lot of the applications built on Web 3.0 would differ from Web 2.0 in the sense that they would be built on top of metaverse capabilities, and that would make it different, which is different from the semantic or static web or semi-dynamic web which we were used to in 1.0 and 2.0.
Okay, so now you talked about a decentralization of the web. What does that really mean? I mean, isn't the CDN is kind of decentralization of the information? You can have multiple servers, multiple places. So what is decentralization in the context of Web 3.0?
Yeah, let me step back a little bit since I'm an architect by profession as well. I like to step back a little bit and talk about what is going on in Web 2.0 with CDNs and things like that. So Web 2.0, since it's serving dynamic or static contents, many a times the content is stored or say cached closer to the location from where it is accessed. And there are proxy servers or caches which are near to your place of login, which are called CDNs, which serve this content very quickly and without a round trip around the globe. Now, this is true for Web 3.0 as well, but architecturally, the CDNs in Web 2.0 serve as a kind of like a slave node. They are not the master. They're like the slave, or they need to get information from somewhere. Whereas in 3.0, the architectural difference is that it's kind of like master nodes replicated everywhere. So they're all peers. The nodes of, so suppose you launch a cluster of Web 3.0 to serve an application on, let's say, a cluster. I can name the cluster too. There is a company called Flux, I think it's called Flux clusters. When you launch clusters like that, you can launch these clusters, and all these clusters, the nodes are peers, which means that they all have the same power and they all have the same logic and capability to talk to other nodes as well as to give information to whoever is closest to it. So this is peer network makes it a little bit different from the previous architecture.
So basically, decentralization actually says that you don't have a central command, you don't have any censorship, and there is no single point failure. Now, isn't that create any kind of impact? Like, you don't have sponsorship. So now I can put any kind of information out there and there is no censorship. So what's the impact?
Yeah, so some of the underlying constructs, I believe, in Web 3.0 are related to blockchain technologies, which by default have immutability built into it. Conceptually, when you think of immutability, it is something which makes is less attack prone. So when you have immutable objects, nobody can manipulate or tamper with them. And if they are stringed together in the right sequence, you can trace back if there was an attempt to attack them. So this kind of immutability in the tokens or immutability in the objects helps avoid intrusion attacks and detection of them. So as such, the need for such problems or such problems arise less in a Web 3.0 world. Hence, we are kind of saying that the Web 3.0 technologies are more trustable, more Although attacks can still happen, but they won't do the damage.
Okay. So another concept of Web3, I believe it's a bottoms up design. Basically, what does that mean is people don't want to use any a custom programming language or custom application, but it should be like kind of open source. Now, usually hackers try to look into the open source code and try to find out how we can attack that code, how we can, basically break the code and get into the system. So doesn't that create another opportunity for attackers? So that even if I can't change something, but I can steal some information.
Yeah. So just first, I'd like to get a poll here. Which has anybody programmed in Web 3.0 here before? Has anybody done the programming? So some of the languages used to program is Python and maybe Java, and these are the primary languages. Now, the vulnerabilities in these languages stay the same, whether in Web 2.0 or 3.0. Primarily because the vulnerabilities. Let's say if you look at Java and its serialization problems, it would be the same here in Web 3.0 world as well. So as such, although it's based on open source technologies, the bet here is that we have added nothing extra dangerous, and the architecture inherently protects changes. So as such, it is less dangerous. But Web 3.0 is more prone to political turmoil here because it is fundamentally changing how the big companies operate, and big companies leverage data. So it has made it has not yet made it, but it will make that fundamental transition, which is one of the architectural challenges, whether to push forward with such a thing or not.
So now, when you're talking about this political turmoil, we are talking about companies like FANG, right? But they are actually saying that they are supporting Web 3.0. So do you think that will have bigger impact on Web 3.0? Will it go forward or will it fall back in a way that they will?
Yeah, so there is a dialogue going on whether the FANG and MANG companies, etc., are supporting Web 3.0 initiatives or not. While the entrepreneurial spirit is never gone in such in such new technologies, but unless somebody big and a consortium of companies support it, it's not going to come up. So everybody is concerned. For example, these companies who are the kind of like the centralized gatekeepers in the Web 2.0 world are. It's a structurally big change, and an investment in such a new distributed system means they have to do away with their old system. So there is this innovation curve, I believe, when to do away with the old system and when to add the new technology so that you don't cannibalize, or you cannibalize the old revenue at the right level so that it's offset by the new revenue. So this decision has to be made, and it has to be clear how you can monetize Web 3.0. So these companies would be in that limbo, but still there are many companies that are supporting these initiatives.
So first of all, let me explain what is, I use the term FANG, FANG, which is Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. These are the 5 big companies which are controlling the web today. And that's the power they have. And you're saying that now we are going to take away that power from them, and they will or will not support. That is the question now.
Yeah, that's the question now. And the power will be cannibalized in some way and offset by revenues in Web 3.0. So those transitions, how and when that will happen, or which companies, there may be a new breed of companies which will take up this, is an open question.
So currently, which companies are supporting or openly supporting, I would say, Web 3.0? And is there any consortium, any forum where the companies are coming together and trying to put things together?
Yeah, there are a few companies that come to the mind. So each one of them has their own vested interest. Um, so let's talk about one of the companies is Apple, of course. The reason why Apple would be interested in this kind of consortium is because obviously the operations of Web 3.0 clients is going to be on phones. There are a lot of wallets and things like that on phones. They have to be compatible with blockchain and things like that. So Apple would be one of them which might be interested in making this happen. The other companies which I see are active is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is interested primarily because I believe that they see market of not only in the NFT and these creations and these digital tokens, digital currencies, but also in the distributed servers of the Web 3.0. There is way to sell their GPU powered equipment as servers in the distributed environment. There are lots of other players like Unity software, which is the gaming software, which helps you create such a world. And there is Coinbase, there is Block, which wants to operate in the payment systems for the Web 3.0. So all these companies are staying bits and pieces, but hopefully they come together and make this successful, at least to some level. And only in the next couple of years will unfold that.
So is there going to be a big change in the way we are using web today? And if that is true, then what's going to happen with Web 2.0? Are they, the basic question is now, if Web 3.0 and 2.0, they are compatible, backward compatible, how we are going to have that kind of experience?
Yeah, it is the same question as, so when you upgrade a software, are you going to keep it backward compatible with the old one? At least I think it will become backward compatible to some levels. So that is a programmatic and developmental design question. Are you going to design a Web3 app in such a way that you can, if the necessary components in 3.0 are not found, you will go back to the 2.0 components to get the answers. So that's a design question. I think initially all the apps, several of them will be designed. There are certain apps which are already there. There are gaming apps, and these are called D apps, distributed apps. There are gaming apps, and there are real estate apps. There are metaverse apps in the 3.0 world. And some of them, I think some of them are not compatible, backward compatible. They just assume that everything is just in the 3.0 world. But maybe the transactional apps, when they are brought about like a metaverse store, etc., maybe they would be backward compatible. So the only time will reveal, and it's I'm hoping that at least some of the apps will be compatible both ways.
So there is another question related to decentralization. So does decentralization bring up any legal or regulatory issues? Because now I have some server which is running in United States and I don't have any issue storing some information. But if I move that somewhere in Latin America, some Europe or Middle East countries, and they are also masters, they are also having same processing power, same information, will that have any regulatory issues?
Yeah, so regulatory issues are more complex in Web 3.0 world because it's not clear how to regulate a distributed environment, and combine that with blockchain, with technologies which seem to be which are generalized systems, not customized systems. It is difficult to regulate them, but small bits and pieces of regulations can help push some of these efforts in certain directions. I think certain industries are ripe to use Web 3.0, like gaming. There is finance. These sectors could help. Finance especially can have some regulations to allow for NFTs and trading of NFTs, and there might already be such regulations. I'm not totally familiar, but that's an area where some such efforts might be right, I believe.
So initially we discussed the reason for having Web 3.0 is to not have any regulatory bodies or censorship. Now we are having regulations, so somebody has to write those regulations. So isn't that ironic? Like, I'm talking about having freedom, but to have freedom, I'm putting chain around you and saying this is your controlled freedom.
Yeah, there is this slight distinction there. So there were non-regulators who were controlling in Web 2.0. For example, the big FANG companies, they're non-regulators, but they control the ecosystem to a big level. So this non-regulator control will go away. That's the control, that's the decentralization we are talking of. Well, the regular regulators continue, and they are, mostly creating limited options, I believe, for the Web 3.0 applications, and which everybody need to abide by. But some, these some aspects of centralized control will go away for sure.
So basically, you mean to say that these regulatory options will be there, or regulations will be there for the sake of interoperability?
Yeah, also for the sake of quick expansion, just like the way recently there was news that in San Francisco, all the cruise or self-driving cars are in place, and regulations were passed, and things are active now. And like the enabling regulations, we are looking that they come about very soon.
So you brought this topic of self-driving cars or things like IoTs. So IoT and Web3, they are going hand in hand. So can you tell me which one is fueling which? Because right now we see a lot of IoT devices, a lot of IoT interaction with AIs and other things. And do you think Web 3.0 will be another catalyst to fuel that entire transition?
Yeah, so it's interesting that my company also does some work in edge devices, in the sense that we fuel the AI for edge devices also. And so my observation is that IoT devices are edge devices, and they need, they're getting fatter and more smarter and more intelligent, including doing AI at their near location. This innovation or this new generation of IoT devices will play well in the Web 3.0 world, because Web 3.0 by default, the clients are fat, because you need a phone which is capable of blockchain, you need a device which is capable of metaverse, because the front-end UI of Web 3.0 world could be something like metaverse applications. So there are fat clients and fat devices, edge devices, which are anyway being invented in this new IoT revolutions. Hopefully, some of those learnings carry over.
Okay. Now, few more questions. What is the career path for people who are interested in doing some development, something in Web 3.0?
Yeah, so actually that's one of the reasons why this talk was, I guess, we were brought in. I'm more of an architect by profession, as well as founder, and I have other, and a professor as well. So students are near and dear to me. But what I tell them is, the new Web 3.0 world has room for blockchain programmers. You can build a blockchain application and develop them in Python and Java and things like that. The other thing is there are distributed apps which you could build. It's a new way of building apps in a distributed way. That's a new room of development activity for developers. There is something called ledger, smart ledgers. Somebody has to build smart ledgers. One of the companies, I was, let me finish the final fourth piece of thing, which I feel is very a strong candidate for innovation as well, and for new people to go in, which is AI for Web 3.0. It's not clear that in the initial conversations that AI is involved here, but it is. So whether it be activities across the chain in Web 3.0 transactions, or some intrusion detection, or whether it be some optimization. There is AI, there is data, and then there is AI analysis and predictions that need to be done, which can be useful in optimizing this whole app. So there are AI developers as well, and all these AI technologies, including NLP or other predictive learning, etc., could be useful.
So basically vision and all sorts of AI applications which we see today.
Yeah, if we tie it up to IoT devices which have cameras, then vision will become important. So all this is the future. It's not there yet. Right now, I feel people are developing Web 3.0 apps in a very basic manner, but there is a lot of room to grow as long as the enabling regulations and enabling consortiums come about soon.
So can you tell me what kind of assistance is available for this programmer who wants to go and learn about Web 3.0 or write those kind of DApps? What kind of tools, what kind of assistance, what is available out there so I can go and try out something there?
Yeah, so couple of things. I just want to point out 3 or 4 things, which is something which I have observed. So if you want to launch a cluster operating a Web 3.0 distributed app, there is something called Flux clusters on NVIDIA technologies, which help you launch that, and you have a cluster to operate this Web 3.0 app. It will obviously, the underlying systems will be compatible with GPUs and things like that, but that's one thing. Then there is designer software, like there is I forgot the name, but there is a designer software which helps you design a Web 3.0 app, and visually as well. So there are these visual tools which use of latest and greatest patterns in blockchain and patterns in smart ledgers, etc., to help you design things and code fairly quickly. So there are such software. There are templates of UI. For example, if you are going for Adobe's Figma software, it will have Web 3.0 templates. You can load them and write or design a UI for Web 3.0 apps fairly easily. So all these are 3 things, and there is Web.py, which is a foundation for a Python-based interaction with the smart ledgers, with the distributed blocks of information, or with the blockchain, etc. So there is Web3.py, which is another useful package, just like the Angular package. There is these packages which help you build 3.3 applications fairly easily. These are just appetizers, but I'm just giving some ideas, saying that these are out there, and hopefully, this revolution catches fire. Like everything, we need to be careful. Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency was supposed to be uber prevalent by now, but it is not. So it all depends on the push and pull, how much users can pull the use case, because what they benefit is decentralization and the power of privacy, whereas how much corporations can pull their way because they suffer to re-architect. So that's what I feel.
So are there any places where people can experiment some of these applications, learn some of the things, or get some more information on the web somewhere where I can go and just look at it and say, okay, this is the Web 3.0 DApp. This is how I should write it. This is how I should create something.
Yeah, I myself have not dug into it, but there seems to be some online tutorials as well as blogs, etc. There are some resources available, and they can be useful for designing such things. There There are training courses also available. I'm not totally sure, but there is no such official, I have not seen an official a curriculum put together by the universities as such to teach such a thing. I have not seen that yet. Maybe when the adoption grows, a lot of the
Yeah, so
professional.
yeah, that was my next question actually. So what kind of initiative universities are taking in 3.0 in terms of research, in terms of putting idea out and trying to explore some new things, like initially AR, VR, they came out of college universities, some education purpose tools, and somebody thought about it and somebody did some basic research, and then that got into industry and people are using it now. So similarly, Web 3.0, are there universities who are actually supporting some of those things in terms of research, in terms of some curriculum somewhere?
Yeah, the research is going on, but whether they're teaching, whether they're teaching it as a professional course is the open question. I think that has not yet evolved there. Maybe there are niche training institutes which might be teaching it one-off, but that's where I think this status quo is. So I feel that would catch fire once Web 3.0 becomes more prevalent, and yeah.
So it's kind of chicken and egg problem now.
Yeah, exactly. Once it's prevalent, then the institutes will also come about. And
Okay, all right.
I myself, as a professor, I see that there's a need to teach this. But if we put this in the curriculum, then students will ask, where is the job for it, and they need an outcome out of it. So
That's
chicken and egg.
basically, yeah, that was my next question. Like, even if I learn something, are there jobs available, real jobs, which can pay me for
It is
doing?
startups, I think. Those who are innovating in this space is where the jobs are.
Good. Thank you. Anything last remark? Anything you want to say? Then we can open the channel for audience.
If there are any questions, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes now. So if you have any question, anyone, then we can take those. Sure, Eddie. I knew that you are going to ask question.
That was great. I'm not a developer. I understood most of it. So I do have a question.
Absolutely.
There's Web 3.0 and then there's Web 3. And I'm understanding that Web 3 is blockchain, metaverse, and so forth. So is Web 3.0 for the IoT sensors and the machine-to-machine learning? I'm just trying to get the distinction.
No, I believe Web 3.0 and Web 3, they are like, synonymous to each other. There is no distinction. It's same. So people say Web 3.0 because we evolved from 1.0, which was static, then 2.0, which is YouTube and media and social media and those kind of things, including Netflix and other things, and even shopping kind of experience. So people can go and do shopping on websites now. So that happened in 2.0 era. And now in 3.0, the fancy name is Web 3.
Oh,
So
It's like an acronym for the same thing. I think.
yes.
okay. So the IoT devices, all the blockchain, the metaverse, it's all
Part of it right now, and there is nobody who has defined what's Web 3.0 clearly. That's the other problem. If you put the 10 people in a room, half of them will fight over what's in it, what's not in it. That's where the current state of affairs is.
Got it. Okay. So
you added IoT, but is IoT really part of it right now? When we are even struggling with basic things like what kind of transitions, or why is a distributed system needed in the first place? A lot of basic questions are getting asked before we move on to IoT, but some innovators have moved on to such IoT-based applications for Web 3.0, but there are still, I think this is still in its second or third year of infancy is what I believe. After being coined in 2014.
okay. So then is this just a follow-on question? At what point do you expect to see some level of maturity so it's all clear?
I've seen a lot of numbers. People have thrown in all kind of numbers. They say by 2030, this would be a several billion-dollar market. But so was the other technologies, which did not. There is a for sure a role to play. I mean, there is a role for Web 3.0 in the consumer mind. It's just not clear how it will be. I feel in 5 years, there would be Web 3.0 applications for sure. That will be commercially available. A lot of the big players would be having their stake in there, and it will be in 5 years for sure. We'll see a good amount of adoption.
Hi, working, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Question, so I have experience in the CDN space. I've been part of the internet, kind of grown up with it. From a security standpoint, I kind of understand it. From a personal data standpoint, I kind of get it. But from a performance itself, like, so many applications, we're all getting kind of more impatient as the day goes. So if the browser takes too long to load, I'll come try again later. In fact, e-commerce, there's actual dollars and cents lost when it takes 0.1 seconds longer to load a page than it did before some places. So there's revenue loss associated with it. So are there any benchmarks associated with Web 3 compared to generic Web 2?
Yeah, I think the only the rule of thumb here is everything is fat in Web 3.0 because the compute processing power much more, much more, resources are needed. So there is no benchmark. I have not seen any benchmark, but these applications, since they will need that kind of power, everything needs to grow. Whether it be the phones, they need to go in their compute power. Whether it the edge devices, they need to grow in their compute power. So all that would happen. I think it's not in there, but.
So let me take that question. I work in embedded systems and close to hardware, sometimes very close to CPU, and my expertise is in networking. So that question is really great because, as long as I can, when I click on an icon and I don't see the reaction coming back, it's useless for me. But one thing I learned when I was working on hardware is everyone in hardware says that speed is our friend. Every year it's doubling, every 1.5 years it's doubling every year. And we have seen, like, over the period, the memory got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, hard disk space getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And now the CPU power is also getting cheaper. Now NVIDIA is coming up with 1,000 core processor. You have 1,000 core there. And that is also going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So eventually we'll have that kind of power available on the edge boxes or even on the edge devices. Now, again, there is another aspect to it is network speed, right? Last 10 years, have you seen any increase in wireless speed?
Yeah, of course, right?
Of course, right? Now, what is pending is the core. AT&T and all these big player, they have huge bandwidth available at the core. They cannot release it until you get to the next phase of the break-even kind of a thing. But once we get it, now I used to work for Cisco. I was processing a packet in 5 nanoseconds. So we are talking in terms of nanoseconds and not even microseconds anymore. So the packet processing is happening in hardware. 5 nanoseconds, that was the limit given to us. Now the only problem is now the amount of traffic we see. It's grown so much that however bandwidth you put in, that is getting lesser and less. I mean, you feel like, I don't have even enough bandwidth. You have Netflix at home, and then all of a sudden your kids start using Netflix, and you have 4 devices playing Netflix streaming. Now that bandwidth is not going to be sufficient. So we are catching up with every time, right? I mean, people start using it, start consuming more and more bandwidth. The hardware, the bandwidth, the network, they try to catch up. And then again, the time they catch up, somebody else will come and then say, okay, now I have additional application or this bigger application which needs more bandwidth.
Okay, so that kind of leads into my next question, and then I know there's another question behind me, but so I'm dating myself here, but we all remember VHS tapes, right? And then there was a competition. There was a competitive product called Beta. Beta was, sold all these things. It was a smaller tape. It stored more data. It never took. Still used VHS. You go to Blockbuster back in the day, it was still VHS tapes. So I guess what is the lure of Web3 and why should anybody care?
Yeah, my take on that is it's the consumer pull.
The data privacy.
Privacy. It's a privacy and regulation pull. If that materializes and the consumers demand it and it catches socially as this is the way to go, then it would be,
So see, this question is similar to I can go and watch a movie in a theater, right? Why would I care if I get Netflix or not?
The
I mean, that
experience, yes.
question we could have asked 15 years ago.
True. But
Right.
But you're right. And it's a valid question. In fact, it's one that now because of big screen TVs, personally, I'd rather watch at home in the warmth of my own house because I have surround sound and all of that Atmos at home. So I'm unfortunately not paying my money to AMC and Edwards and Regal and whatnot. But you're absolutely right. But from a corporate standpoint, because I think you're right. I think individuals will push that. I think GDPR in Europe will probably blaze trails in that requirement. I don't think the United States will actually drive some of those Web3, but I do think with cookies that GDPR has put in place in Europe, I think they will do that. So it's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for. Not so close. Okay. Thank you for taking a stab on the Web3, Web 3.0. So, you know that Web3 is actually far different from Web 3.0. One is semantic web, while the Web3 is the blockchain based. So that is not my main stuff. We are still very early, based on what you said, in the adoption of either of them. But so actually, if you look at the people that bring all of this technology, they find a way to associate it with the consumers, because that's where the money that they've invested will come from. So my question to you is, look at the blockchain. Everybody wants privacy, right? So that is the first goal about that. Now, I now have the Web 3.0, which have all of my Internet of Things and Internet of Behaviors. So what do you see in future? How can we marry both of them to actually guarantee that privacy and then sell it to the major community? Because they can, consumers cannot guarantee their own privacy. We've done everything that we can do to help them to protect themselves, and that it's not working. So now with the innovation of Web 3 and 3.0, we believe that we'll be able to do that. Can you talk about how you think we can easily get there, or, how soon do you think we'll be able to benefit as a larger consumer? Thank you.
Yeah, so, if anybody has heard about the browser DuckDuckGo, so it's a privacy browser. So, the reason why people want to try that out is an example of how privacy would be important for folks, for the customers and customers. And so like that, a DuckDuckGo-like app in Web 3.0 would catch up with the bandwagon of privacy, at least in certain locations where it's deemed important, and also because of regulations. So if you see GDPR in Europe, etc., it's quite intense with respect to the guardrails it put together. So maybe folks over there might go for such applications first, and then it'll catch on everywhere else. And also, I'd like to point out one thing for companies. The other side, if anywhere in the globe you have a regulation, for them it's the same effort to put together the software which applies and solves the problem. So for the companies, it doesn't matter whether the regulation is in California or in Europe. Once somebody has it, they have to solve it for everybody. And at least that will also somehow help in this process, is what I'm.
Great. Anyone here? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks.